Ma'am, with your due permission, may I start my round of rebuttal and may I address the questions?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Thank you, respected CAC, for giving me the permission to address a question to my fellow presidential candidate. This is a question that I've also addressed in my video. So the same question goes to you. How would you react to a team member who challenges your opinion?
My first reaction would be to listen that person completely out, what that person exactly wishes to say, and because that person is equally a part of the organization, and I would like to listen to his or her views. Then I'll consult someone else, somebody who is a third party sort of person who does not have interests vested in either of them. Let that person decide. Now, this might not be feasible always, so we might have to talk things out, talk over things. We need to negotiate, we need to discuss it amongst ourselves, and we need to resolve problems. Because this is a situation which is bound to arise again and again in the organization, where we are big tent, we have so many opinions together. So this is how I believe we must go ahead with the situation.
Okay. With the prior permission of the Chief Election Commissioner, may I please go ahead with my question?
Yes, ma'am, please. The floor is yours. Please.
Okay. So it's a situation sort of thing. For example, GFL under your presidency collaborated with a certain organization. And after a month or so, you found that the organization is not helping you, but it's actually going against your fame or your interest or the interest of that GFL holds. Then how would you react and how would you handle this situation?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. So the first thing would be to consult with the board of directors, the heads of the statutory bodies. What exactly do they have to say in this regard? And then we can go ahead. In my personal capacity, what I think is in the interest of GFL or is in the interest of the organization, that might be the same with others. So some other person might have a different opinion. So firstly, we need to have we need to discuss all of these things together. Internal differences have to be resolved. Secondly, we'll take up proceedings accordingly in accordance to the charter. We'll have certain provisions in that regard. So we might have to terminate the collaboration, or we might have to issue a strict notice or warning. So that is something which will depend on what the board of directors then decide. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
With due respect of the respected CEC, I would like to ask the next question.
Please, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. The questions that I'm asking are written by me, so there's no sourcing. For instance, our organization has gained about 10,000 donation from the UNESCO, and there is one worker in this organization who has been deceiving us in terms of extrapolating money and thievery in receipts. Now you as the president of the organization have to deal with this thievery. So how will you deal with it?
So I'll say this is very similar to the previous question which was put forward by Sriksha. Now this is a situation which the organization as a whole has to deal. So what I can in my capacity do is I can refer it to the statutory bodies, and if we are getting donations worth be it 10,000 rupees or $10,000, we must be having some of the other sort of people appointed specifically for that. We might be having a treasury cell or maybe an audits and account department. So I'll approach them to check if anything has happened in this regard. And in case somebody has been acting as an imposter and taking these donations in our name, but like we are unaware of that, I believe that's the situation. So in that situation, firstly, I'll talk to all the legal people first. I'll address the entire thing to them. I'll share the exact details, whatever I've got. Let them think in this regard. Since we are an associate chapter of the Young World Federalists, so and other organizations also, we are planning to collaborate with them. So if required, I'll approach them also if we require any legal help. But firstly, I'll try to know that person's motive, what that person's intention is, what that person is exactly doing, and I'll try to gather solid evidence against that person. If not myself alone, then I'll try to involve other members and get this information. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, so Chief Election Commissioner, ma'am, may I go ahead next?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. So my question would be, let's say, for example, we are like our one of the priorities would be to search for more collaborations and expansion of the global fraternity. Let's say, like as we've seen, and also like the young world federalists have seen that not much people are interested and they face a lot of criticism and all. So what if we come at a stagnant point where we don't get people who are joining us, where we are not able to get more collaborations? So how would you handle this situation?
Okay, so in my opinion, if we reach a stage of stagnancy, it does not necessarily have to be negative. Because see, if more people are not coming in, but people are not leaving at the same time. Some people are staying despite all the odds. So those people, they are the true assets. They are the true spirit of the organization because they believe in the ideals. They believe in pacifism, democracy, and federalism. Now, but this is something which we must take seriously and we must think how to spread our word ahead. So if we are not getting any collaboration, that is also something which we must look into. So what I'll do from my end is I would like to approach the collaborations director. I like to approach the communications director. What is exactly happening in our propaganda cell? I would not call it propaganda. What is exactly happening with our public outreach? I would like to have a look at the posts. Then I like to go through other organizations. How exactly are they coordinating their activities? We might have to revamp our structure a bit. We might have to change the allocation of portfolios and so on. Like some person who is not very comfortable with public outreach, but is very comfortable with IT. So we might have to look into that. We might have to make the allocations accordingly. So again, it's all democratic discussion, which is the key to this entire situation. If we as a close community of people, if we stay strong, we can get in more people. But if we ourselves have internal differences, and differences which are serious and which are very strong in nature, that would be the downfall of our organization and that would lead us to that stagnancy. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you.
I wish to ask the next question.
The floor is open, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Since you've been talking about the dissemination of responsibilities, I want to know how will you create an environment for innovation within this organization, if there is any?
Okay, what I would like to comment here is there's no need to create an environment for innovation because we already have one. We are a bunch of people who are different from the quintessential political whatever is happening currently. I won't get into that. We believe in an idea which people consider obsolete, utopian. People don't consider that possible at all. So we are always going to remain innovative. In what is in my capacity, what I can do is basically I can encourage people to go beyond boundaries. We have a lot of organizations which are very commercial in their dealings. Like by this time of the month we need this report. By this time of the month we need this work to be done. What I would like to introduce in the work ethos is no deadlines, no targets. What you think is perfect, what you think is good for you, go ahead and do that. In case you feel that you're unable to do this job or you're facing some discomfort, do let us know. We'll give you some other job. It's all a matter of keeping people in their hospitable situations because I'm a person who's not very comfortable with software and things like that. But if you put me in the IT cell, I would not be able to work productively and hence no innovation from my end. But if you put me in things like public outreach and content writing or translation, then my innovation will come into being. So we need to make people first comfortable. People need to feel that the JFL is something similar to a fraternity. JFL is their organization. It's not just some other person sitting and instructing them. People need to feel that connect with everyone. People just should feel that, okay, I know Swiksha Mishra or I know Kaushik Ishwar, not just because of JFL, but because we are friends. It's not all about JFL. That thing has to be inculcated. And then I believe innovation is there. Like innovation is going to come out on its own.
I'm indeed satisfied with the answer. Please to follow up.
Ma'am, the floor is all yours. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. For instance, you become a president and you amend the charter by adding 30 years to your presidency like Vladimir Putin. Now, what is the worst thing that you can do to this organization?
Okay, that's a tough. I'll say that's a good question from your end. Firstly, I don't think so I'm authorized enough to add 30 years. In case I'm successful in doing that, 30 years, if I do that, that's the worst thing I believe I can do to the organization, because that's against democracy, which is one of the founding pillars of our organization. Considering that I'm a pacifist, I cannot necessarily go and like turn the organization to a military junta. That's something I cannot do until the time I remain a pacifist. Until the time I remain a federalist, I'll have to ensure that the statutory bodies, they're vested with equal powers. All the organs of the organization, be it the board of directors, be it the consultants, be it anyone, get some equal powers. I believe this 30-year thing is the worst thing I can do, like extending my tenure, because that's going to be undemocratic. That's going to be antithetical to the very purpose of the organization. So at the current scenario, this is the worst I believe I can do. Ma'am, with your due permission, may I ask a few questions to my fellow candidate Kaushiki Ishwar?
Yes, sir, please go ahead. The floor is on.
Ma'am, thank you very much for entertaining my questions. My first question to you would be that I went through your campaign trail and got to know about your inclination towards opening our organization to donations and financial contributions. Now, considering the legal implications involved in the same and the current situation of GFL, we are in our infancy. Would you still propose an end of our $0 model at this early stage?
Thank you for the question. I'm not proposing that we have to take the money in such an initial stage. Let's get associated, let's get settled. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years down the line, we can start taking donations. And taking donations is not a large amount. We're not asking for 10,000, 20,000. We're asking for 1,000 rupees or maybe 500, associating ourselves to colleges. Colleges are very great at funding. Private colleges, though they have a lot of money, so I've been practicing this, have been hearing this by a lot of friends of mine, that eat the rich. So why not let us take this campaign ahead and try to fabricate the private institutions, because they have a lot of fees that have been taken by the students, and doing things that are favorable for the students, establishing this communion ahead and establishing organizations proposing this sort of events will help the students to gain more knowledge. And indeed we will get that amount of money as a fee, and we are having a nominal fee for that. That's it. That is.
Okay, so I'll have a plea to follow up for this. You talked about the thing, okay,
Yes, sir, please.
5 to 10 years down the lane, you want to open the organization to donations. And like I went through your entire opinion on fees and all, everything that's particularly fine. But what is the requirement to delve into that at the current situation? Because what I have seen throughout the thing is like organizations that get into problems because of this entire money thing. Plus, if we open up ourselves to money and financial contributions, and if we really like go ahead with this policy that since organizations are having a lot of money, private institutions and all, so we must like make the best out of them, and we must get a lot. This does not really sound very ethical to me. This is my opinion. So, would you like to elaborate further on this part?
Okay, definitely. Retracing to my integrity of my personality, I do not intend to charge lakhs or crores. Even if we have, for instance, there's this college, private institution, let's call it XYZ. And this particular institution has for 40,000 crores in their banks deposits, whatever you call it. Now, if we go there, establish a campaign, establish a communion of events, like, for example, a world parliament, we will be costing 500 or maybe even 200 for the students to come up and share their ideologies. So 200, and there's no profit intake. So we are asking for a nominal fee, very nominal fee. And there are a lot of organizations that have had a lot of immense amount of money, and they've got ridden with the law. So I'm not telling that we will get ridden by the law. We will definitely practice in a more ethical or more moral way of integrating our association with such things. And this is not something that I intend to start radically. this is the election, we're done with the election, now the next thing is charging up for donations on PayPal and a lot of other mediums. No, we will be taking this organization, establishing it, getting it registered, getting an MOA, AOA, and after that, after 6 years or maybe 12 years, we will start taking donations, because at the end of the day, this lockdown will get over. We have to start making this a very global association. For that, we need a little bit amount to establish that. I hope this satisfies your conscience. I'm very moral.
Yeah, it does. Okay, now I understand what you are exactly trying to say. We can go ahead with that. But of course, we'll be requiring some time and some experience as you put it. So I'll be moving on to my next question. What steps do you suggest to limit the politicization of our organization? Now, basically, we are a big tent organization and we have people from the left, we have people from the right, we have socialists, communists, everybody with us. So ideally, we should not be like making political statements and things like that at an organizational level when we are representing the organization. But many others have succumbed to this. Many other executives have ended up making political statements, and someday or the other, we might have to face this problem in the GFL. So, what steps do you suggest to limit this phenomena?
Thank you for asking this question. I wanted somebody to actually ask me this question. Talking about politicization, we are an organization that has been established on political ideologies. What is democracy? What is federalism? What is pacifism? These are political ideologies. So we are definitely a political organization if you say in this context. Now, when we say about blasphemy, when you say about scandalizing and using languages that are potent, that are very much straightforward and very much radicalizing a lot of people. So for that, we have to establish a committee, and I would probably add this name called pacifying committee to remove all the dirt and all. So maybe this is what I propose. And the main problem with radicalization or politicization is, even if we have factions, even if we have statement like these, it's fine, because at the end of the day, we are an organization where people are joining not because they are very political, not they are very scandalizing in nature. They are joining because they have a neutral opinion on a lot of things. They've already had a lot. They've been sick with the politicians. That is why this organization has been made. So I hope this satisfies your conscience.
To some extent, it does, but I'll have to have a follow up over here. You purportedly
Definitely.
use the word dirt, like that was something you used, which I don't agree to. And secondly, you called us as a political organization in a specific context. Now, what I would like to comment on this is that pacifism, democracy, and federalism, you cannot really put them on the left or the right of the political spectrum. They are integral principles of polity. So there's a difference between polity and politics. That's the situation. They are considered more of a moral and philosophical principle rather than political ones. Political, in the sense which I'm talking about, is that you have we cannot really go and we cannot endorse socialism as our ideal in the GFL. Neither can we go with capitalism. So if people with these views, they start associating that with the GFL, like imagine somebody from the board of directors goes and says that the GFL is a socialist organization. That is not something which is desirable. So how would you counter that? Specifically, people imposing their personal political views on the organization as a whole. And secondly, regarding the term you used, dirt. So what I would like to say over here is, I won't be asking you any questions in that regard, but you might have people who differ, people who might be intending to create a disturbance, but we must always have empathy towards these people because they're afflicted by a disease. There's a saying, right? Don't hate the diseased. So this is the situation. So what I'll say is the use of the term dirt is not appropriate in my opinion. You can comment on this.
Thank you for asking this question again. Talking about this specific contest, how to reduce polarization, I would say calling out people. Just like I misused the term dirt, you called me out. So that is a very empathetic reaction to that. Also, there are few steps that have been conjuring in my mind. First is improving communication channels and creating forums of dialogue, and establishing this third party. You understand what a third party is? A non-polarized middle. So these personals would have this authority to create a middle ground which will actually neutralize the conversation that we are having. Now, taking opportunities to build a working level of trust. So if we have this trust amongst us, for instance, that you called me out on me using a specific context that was not right, so we have a level of trust, so I can actually depend on you, or even if you call me out, I will not be embarrassed or harassed in any way.
Mhm.
So that is one thing. Again, using guidelines to neutral facilitation to maintain respectful and very divergent interaction. In that way, we can actually reduce polarization, and we can escalate a form of interaction where diversity is the key. Thank you.
Yeah. My last question to you: do you consider revolution as the only means of achieving a goal?
No, that is how I respond to a question. But for me, revolution is as important as an evolution. So if you take these two terms together, we can actually create a mindset where an evolved mindset will actually lead to a revolution, and that too. I'm not saying a revolution has to be violent or radicalized. It can be very peaceful. Like this particular organization is revolutionary in nature. So I think evolution and revolution goes hand in hand. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all from my end. Uh, I yield my time to the Chief Election Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Are there any further questions from any of the presidential candidates? Please go ahead.
With your permission, Chief Election Commissioner, I shall want to ask questions to my fellow presidential candidate possible.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. So my first question to you is, what unique plans do you plan to carry out to make this particular Global Federal League a unique and a different organization than everybody else?
Thank you for posing this question. Now, again, we are a very virtual form of interaction that is happening. So the only thing that we are reliable on is the social media. So posting unique content. I've been scrolling through these organizations like Feminist Association in India, FYI. This particular organization has had a very potent impact on me, because these sort of organizations go hand in hand with the authentic journalism. They go with facts, they go with real life incidents, they go to ground reporting. And I'm not saying that you have to go to the field right now. They have had interaction uh, with the underprivileged section. For instance, there's this reporter who was interviewing her caretaker. So this is how the underprivileged section gets a voice. So this is how relatability is established. Posting unique content is one such approach that will bring out the uniqueness and distinctiveness in our organization. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that there are no further questions from the candidates. So that was a very insightful rebuttal round and quite satisfying. So right now we will be moving directly towards the end note.
Ask me all sorts of questions.
With due respect of the CEC, I would like to pose the question to the presidential candidate, Ms. Sweksha Misra.
Yes, ma'am, you have the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Sweksha, can you share some personal examples when you were a catalyst who indeed brought groups with polarized opinions together, so that all voices were at the table, apart from the Global Federal League?
Okay, so that is a very much relatable question to me, because at several times I've faced this situation. So basically, it mostly happens when we are discussing about a certain ideology. For instance, one of my friend is very far left communist, and one of my friend is like center right person. So when they both start debating on their certain ideologies, I play as a centrist person, or let's say not a centrist. Uh, I'm like a no party belonging person, where I listen to the opinions of both my leftist friend and my right wing friend, and then I ask both of them the questions, which I feel is not right. Because when you actually talk about capitalism, and when you talk about socialism, there are still the side let's say not side effects, but let's say uh, shortcomings. The shortcomings in both the ideologies. I try to debate more on the shortcomings rather than their preaching of ideologies, so that we come to a perfect understanding and a conclusion. Yeah.
That was a middle ground answer. Please to follow up. Okay. So how will you inspire all federal workers of this organization to provide the highest level of service and contribution?
Okay. So, first of all, the areas in which they will be working shall be strictly specified. What all you have to do has to be specified beforehand. And when they are working, and when first of all, I'll try to make them very comfortable at what they are doing. And as I stated in my manifesto, I'll try to give them what the job which they are most passionate about, so that there is no much complaint. So when the people are satisfied with what they are doing, I guess the productivity will be at its zenith. So that is how I'll try to take out all the production.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question. As you have justified that there will be specified sectors that they will be working and contributing in. Now, if there is one person who is not interested in that specified work, so what are the rules of procedures that that person has the authority to get out of this procedure? I'm asking about the specific instructions.
Okay, so as our charter is going to be unveiled pretty soon, so I really hope the charter has the rules of procedure mentioned, which is not like yet known to us. But according to that, and even if it requires something new, because there are new things every day that's happening, and new ideologies and new problems coming up. That's why come new solutions. So if there is something new, like something we haven't expected, then obviously we'll put forward this in front of the working committee, and we'll do accordingly, and all the opinions, and then we'll move forward with it.
Thank you, ma'am. One more last question. If How will you confront a person who is very close to you in this organization and who has committed an honest mistake?
When there is an honest mistake, there shall be a honest jurisdiction for the person. When I am he or she is my friend when I am off this organization. But when we are discussing as a president, and if I am an office bearer, and if somebody commits a mistake, then it's just a mistake for me. It doesn't matter if it's my friend or if it's something you know where I can go a little less serious. So that's what I believe is the rules are same for all, and everybody is equal for everybody in the GFL when we work as a person and not as a friend to any person.
Okay, presidential candidates, will you be addressing some questions from the CEC itself?
Yeah, with pleasure, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay, so this is a question from one of the election committee members, Shupriyo Kundu. So he addressed that as there is a lot of inactivity within the members of the GFL, so how three of you, when you get into, or any of you will be as the president when you get elected, so how you will be resolving this issue? Please, ma'am, sir, please address this.
Okay, since currently I am the person in the question, so I am answering the question, so I'll answer this first. inactivity indeed is a problem which our organization is facing, and we need to address it at the earliest. So in my manifesto also I have written that I would like to evolve a sort of certification for members. Like basically, people are entering, they have to fill a lot of forms, and they need to like put this forward that they're indeed interested to work in the organization. We'll need some sort of skimming, because people who are being idle, people who are unable to contribute to the organization in their current portfolios, they need to be interviewed, they need to be questioned, like what are the problems they're exactly facing. So accordingly, we'll make the allocations. And for some other person to be like join the board of directors or the consultancy, that person will have to undergo some round of probation. Then there's of course this provision in the hierarchical code which entitles the organization to not exactly terminate, but like end a person's tenure as a in a particular position if that person is deemed incompetent by a 2/3 majority, an absolute majority. So we won't really want to get into these things. These are unpleasant and we don't want to disappoint people, but in certain situations these are necessary. Hence I'll be going ahead with this. This is something which the human resources department will be managing, which is statutory in nature. I'll be extending my full support to them in this regard. And from my end, I'll be distancing myself from inactivity, and I'll be keeping myself active throughout my tenure, or throughout my tenure as a member of the organization.
Thank you, sir, for the answer. Miss Ishwar, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, this is a very intricate question. Now, I believe that termination is no option until you have no participants to terminate. So, what I believe is the internet and technology have flattened the political playing field, allowing for more collective decision making in new ways. So, posting out new content, and I mean not new content, unique content that would actually intrigue the public to take part in this organization. Firstly, that was my first recommendation. Secondly, I would suggest that since we need to meet people who are very enthusiastic and zealous in no way possible, because I think I have been participating in these sort of organizations, MUNs, because I'm zealous and enthusiastic in a normal way. Now, if we try to preach to a people who is non-active, who always like to go to a beer shop, and he's not knowledgeable, so if we try to preach them, then we will have an outcome that is not feasible. So we have to preach in MUN circles, because these students, participants, and members are very active, are very enthusiastic to participate, even in one of the most slowest or most random organization, and to voice their opinions. So participating and inculcating those enthusiastic, over enthusiastic people like me in these sort of organizations will actively increase the participation of this organization, and we will have fruitful results. Thank you. That this is where I stop my answering.
Okay, that's quite satisfying. So, Miss Mishra, please go ahead.
Okay, that's a really nice question to begin with, actually. So, as we know, this is an issue that we have to face. I decided to break it down into two parts. Like, first of all, there will be a new set of rules which needs to be implemented to all the members. Like, if there is, for example, a meeting, then you are supposed to be present as one of the members of the GFL, then if you have a certain genuine reason for not attending it, you should give the prior information before the meeting. And if you fail to do it, there shall be a number of chances in which, if you fail, then there shall be proper rules what to do after that. Because we cannot really be very casual about these things, because what an organization need as a driving force is discipline. And unless we do not recognize the need for this, we cannot actually go far from here. And secondly, what I will do is I will really try to make the environment really friendly. Like, for example, I'll try to make them more interactive by, let's say, for example, one good idea, like posting question of the day, which I actually found in my organization. It actually takes out the creativity from inside. Let's say, for example, what is the decision that you regret? What is something, or let's say, because we are youth, we all are attracted towards memes and all. So we can actually have apart from our official forum, some of the fun sessions, which will actually be more interactive. When people come to know each other, they will feel at home in this organization, and I want them to feel at home because we share the common ideas. We share the ideals which we believe in. So if we are sharing something very intimate as a a mindset, uh, let's say a ideology. So that is what I think will make us more closer and active rather than choosing for termination and all.
Perfect. And even once the president is elected, the charter is also going to get implemented as far as we know. So definitely the code of conduct and the hierarchical code and the bylaws will be implemented. So definitely those rules will definitely going to get implemented. Thank you, three of you, to answer the question. Okay, I have another question in my hand. So this is a thing where, as being a president, so as we are a non-registered organization under the Indian law, land of law, Indian law. So when are we going to get registered regarding this? If you could state something regarding this, let's start with Tomkar. Please, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So this is another important question for our organization. We basically have the organizational structure of an NGO. We are having board of directors, and we are perhaps even beyond that. We are like doing a lot of things. We are conducting elections. So we are very systematic in our approach, and it's in our interest that we register ourselves at the earliest. Now, considering that many of us, we are still in education and we are still not ready to take up the responsibility of like getting this registered, because the problem is it does not just mean filling up a few forms and it's over at that. We'll need to open ourselves to donations, perhaps forcibly. Reason being, we need to hire a CA, then they'll go through our accounts, they'll check everything. Then they are going to take some time to register as an NGO. Plus, a lot of NGOs, I did some research in this regard, and I saw a lot of NGOs getting blacklisted because of some other problems. So we definitely don't want to get blacklisted. The thing with GFL is GFL's best part, I believe, is its $0 policy. We don't want people to come and donate their money and like go ahead. That's not the ultimate contribution. People should believe in contributing their artistic talent, their intellectual capacity, the intellectual faculties, their time, their dedication. That is what is the greatest contribution for us. And considering that we are more of a civil society than an NGO, so we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait for some time until we exactly discuss how we are, what sort of organization we are. We discuss our plan of action, whether are we going to really go proactively on field, are we going to distribute food and water and things like that in flooded areas or drought prone areas, are we going to get into those like ground sort of activism, the reality activism. Then I believe we can be in a better position to register ourselves. Until then, we must exercise caution. Let us do whatever we are doing currently with utmost dedication. Let us keep ourselves open to opportunities and thoughts.
Perfect, sir. Thank you for answering. Miss Ishwar, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving this opportunity. As said by my fellow presidential candidate, we have been very systematic with our approach. We've been following all of these things that needs to be adhered to setting up an NGO or any governmental organization, non-governmental, I suppose. We have been deciding the cause. We're very fundamental in our approach. But there's one thing, very short and crisp thing that I've been researching 2 days ago, that how to register an organization, and Google gave me this answer that you have to have an MOA or AOA. So this is one thing that our board of directors futurely having this conjured upon their mind, that we may have articles of incorporation or memorandum of association. So this thing is one technical thing and legally abiding that I would play to propose in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Perfectly answered, ma'am. Miss Mishra, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am, for providing me this opportunity to answer this question. So, of course, getting registered is one of the important issues which we have to handle. And first of all, I'll check on the legal things if we are appropriately in the way and in the right time to get ourselves registered. And as Omkar said, we need to make sure that need to at least have an experience of how the committee is going on, how are the things going on, are we really NGO sort of thing, or are we something else like a civil society, as you mentioned. So taking the legal things into consideration, then our working into consideration, and then about being able to being qualified enough to register ourselves as in some certain years of age which is required. And if it all is fulfilled, then obviously I look forward to get this league registered.
Perfectly answered, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am. We will be there for all your helps. And as a member, definitely. Thank you for answering three of the panelists. And
Your Excellency, and all the esteemed participants of today's caucus. In my concluding statement, I wish to congratulate you all for making this event a great success. I hope that subsequent elections follow this precedent and we continue to uphold our ideals eternally. This has been a big day for all of us, and I personally have evolved as an individual by contesting as a candidate in all of your company. May this camaraderie further enhance and continue, and may we succeed in our ultimate ideal, in our ultimate vision, a world democratic federation. Thank you very much. Stay positive, test negative, and even if you test positive, don't lose, for we are there for you and we express our solidarity. Have a nice day ahead.
Here's to this interesting reference. There are two kinds of people, the one who merely destroy and the ones who rebuild and restore and recreate. And even if it means watching it to pieces, just start again. So let's be that catalyst who starts, who recreates, and who rebuilds. I would like to express gazillions of thank yous. Hope I'm not overusing these words. Your Excellency, our Chief Election Commissioner, I have to say, I was always the person who would send the videos a night prior, and still she would still be very polite and earnest enough to approve that. Also, the media personals for posing questions, Risha and Soham for being unprivileged individuals. The rest of the committee, I may be missing names here, but you all are phoenixes in yourself. My fellow presidential candidates, for once I did not feel an ounce of enviousness or jealousy in any way. And voters, I did not sit here in front of my laptop and to only say that vote for me, but instead vote regardless of who you know or do not. I've ranted for a minute, so thank you.
Okay, so as a closing statement, I would just like to thank all the family members of the Global Federal League. I would like to thank the Chief Election Commissioner, ma'am, for always supporting and always helping me whenever there was a problem. Or I would like to thank Omkar and Kaushiki, the fellow presidential candidates, for having for like maintaining the opportunity and maintaining the legacy of the Global Federal League. And I would also like to thank all the press members for asking such a wonderful and such relevant questions. Next, I would like to thank the interim working committee for working and for actually letting this election such a great success. It was because of the working committee which was there at the backdrop, helping in any and every way possible. May it be preparing of charter, may it be preparing for the theme, the anthem for the league, or may it be preparing for, or just bringing up ideas. I would also like to thank all the general forum members and all the voters to stay connected, to to stay in the solidarity for the ideals we share. And in the end, I really hope that the ideas we share of democracy, of pacifism, and of federalism may rise more than this, may weigh more than this organization. Thank you very much.